everybody! It's Friday, and that means it's Star Trek Day. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job here. It's just me talking, watching Star Trek, talking Star Trek. Um, Me reading books, talking books. There's no special effects here. There's no special editing or nothing. It's just me, very, very low tech. Maybe one day if I get special equipment, I'll get a better handle on this. Maybe I'll figure out a way to do it better. But this is it for now. So I'd appreciate it if you please hit the like and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, let me know I'm doing a good job here. 10 months and just past 100 likes. It would be nice to have a Christmas present of 1,000, but it would need a really big miracle to get me 900 more likes in the next 60 days. But hey, spread the word, share the love. Thank you. So, anyways, we are on Star Trek Next Generation, Season 4, Disc 2. Last week we did Remember Me. So this week we're doing Legacy with the Linda Hamilton lookalike. Then we'll do Reunion. Then we'll do Future Imperfect. But right now we're doing Legacy, episode 180. Oh, oops, I forgot to change it. Okay, we're doing Legacy, season 4, just 2, episode 180, with the Linda Hamilton lookalike, Beth Toussaint. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. The episode starts out with the poker game, and that seems to be a classic. That's how they ended Picard. So, if you saw the season 3 final episode of Picard, you know that's how they end it. But anyways, let's get going here. So we start out with Worf, Troy, Data, and Riker playing poker. And Riker says, Worf, are you trying to fill another inside straight? Don't say I didn't warn you. Worf passes. Troy folds. Data says, I will raise you 3. Riker says, no cards, best poker face I've ever seen. Dealer takes 2, I raise you 10. Data says, I see your bet and raise you 20. Riker says, Data, are you sitting on a full house or a flush? Data says, it will cost you 20 to make that determination, sir. Dealer folds. Troy says, you two have successfully divided the evening between yourselves. Worf says, I suspect conspiracy, but far be it for me to accuse my superior officers. Riker says, it's getting harder to bluff you, Data. You've learned this game well. Data says, yes, sir, I believe I have. And then Riker does one of those really old card tricks. Really, really old card tricks. And I didn't see the point of it in the episode. I don't know. It could have been spent with some other stuff. But I guess they thought it was cute that Data accuses Riker of cheating and that he wins the pot. And I tell you, I feel sad for Data this whole episode. Your heartstrings it must have been hard for Brent Spinner just to play it straight and not to, show emotion. But you had to have imagined, you could not watch this episode and not feel for Data in the whole thing. And he never showed her the hologram either of Tasha. So I was kind of wondering about that too. But it's a Data episode, but I don't know. All right. So he does the old card trick. I really don't think you guys need to. He shuffles it, he splits it, he shuffles it, he takes a card, chooses a card. Oh my god. So, that's nothing. So, the captain contacts Riker, says, we've received distress call. We are changing course to intercept. So it starts out with a voiceover from the captain. The Enterprise has bypassed a scheduled archaeology survey of Camus 2 in response to a distress call from a Federation freighter Arcos has assumed an emergency orbit around Toucan 4, birthplace of our late comrade Tasha Yar. Picard, Riker, Data, Worf, and Troy are at the stations. Data says we will enter the Turkan system in 11 minutes. Picard, engine status. Data says stable, but we have maintained warp factor 9 for longer than recommended. Worf says subspace message from the Arcos. Their transmitter is failing, audio only. Picard says let's hear it. Tantasu's voice, Enterprise, this is Tantasu, Arco engineer, estimate 5 minutes till warp drive containment breach. Make that 3 minutes. Thanks for trying, Enterprise. Picard, warp 9.3, ensign how much time? Data says 7 minutes, 15 seconds will bring us transporter range. Picard says go to warp 9.6. Picard says, Mr. O'Brien, prepare to lock onto 2 crewmen. O'Brien's calm voice, aye, Captain. Data entering the Turkan system, Captain. Picard says, slow to impulse. Data says, visual. They get them out of there, O'Brien. Status, O'Brien. O'Brien says there's nothing there to lock onto, Commander. Data, I'm reading an ion trail characteristic of a freighter escape pod. Unable to establish contact, Worf says. Picard says it could have been damaged by the explosion. They may have been incapable of maintaining orbit. Riker says, let's hope they stay clear of the colony. Data says that's exactly where the ion trail leads, Commander. Picard says, hail the colony. Worf says, I've been trying to, Captain, but no response. They haven't been to maintain reliable communication since the government fell apart. Data says the last Federation vessel to attempt contact was Potomac 6 years ago. They were warned that anyone transporting down to the colony would be killed. Picard says, ready away team. Then there's a voiceover. We are in orbit above Turkana 4, an Earth colony that's severed. Come here. You're over here. Come say hi. I don't like being on TV. I just don't like being on TV. Turkana 4, an Earth colony that severed relations with the Federation nearly 15 years ago. I'm concerned about sending an away team, but if we are to discover the fate of the 2 missing Federation crewmen, I see no alternative. So then they're in the transporter room, and Data says the surface settlement appears to be all but destroyed. Sensors show that the colonists now live in structures that extend nearly 3 kilometers beneath the city. Riker says, have you located the escape pod's landing point, Chief? O'Brien says, yes, sir, 300 meters beyond the colony perimeter. Worf says, we can anticipate a violent response to our presence. Perhaps the doctor should wait here until we signal. Beverly says, I appreciate the concern, but I think it's exaggerated. And Worf's like, Doctor, the colony is completely lawless. Lieutenant Yar spoke of rape gangs. Beverly says, Mr. Worf, I can handle myself. Riker says she's coming. The Arcos crewman may require immediate medical assistance. Phasers on maximum stun. Riker says, energize. They beam down to the planet. They beam down into the tunnels. They go into the tunnels. Riker says, hardly the response we expected. Beverly says, maybe things have changed here. And then some guy walks up to them and says, identify yourselves. Riker says, we're from the Federation Starship Enterprise. We tracked 2 crewmen to this area. Do you know anything about them? The guy's like, maybe. Riker says, what do you mean? They found us. Proximity detectors are going off. I've seen them used on the Manu 3. The man says, follow me. So they meet Hayne. The Alliance is holding your men hostage, Commander Riker, not us. You can expect a ransom demand. Riker says, the Alliance? He goes, our good friends are going to be upset when they realize we took their last crate of polonium citrate. Riker says, maybe I should take this to the authorities. Haynes says, we are the authorities. The Coalition, our cadre run this side of the city. The Alliance controls the other side. Take your choice. Riker, are you offering to help us? Haynes says, in return for some consideration, phasers are in short supply down here. A starship isn't going to miss a few. Worf said, this is no better than a ransom demand. Haynes says, no matter what you give the Alliance, they'll eventually kill your crewmen anyway. With our help, there's at least a chance you'll get them back alive. All I'm asking for is help in maintaining our defense. We're trying to keep the peace. I don't know why they just don't leave. Wouldn't you want to go live on a planet above ground with, farming and forests and trees and lawns and stuff? Wouldn't you just ask for evacuation maybe? I mean, the Enterprise could do that. I don't get it. Some people say we're headed for World War III now. I don't know. Would you stop? No, eating the cables. Come here. Smokey. 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 You're getting tangled up in the cables. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. I know. She doesn't like being on TV, but she likes messing around with mommy's wires. We lost our buddy a couple weeks ago. So, and he was the oldest, but in a cat household, it's the female that rules. And she's been taking advantage of the fact that he's no longer here, trying to gain privileges that she's not entitled to and that are not good for a cat. Like chewing on wires. No. Riker says everything we've seen suggests otherwise. Haynes says a prank. Our proximity implants prevent either side from doing any serious damage. They warn us when the enemy is approaching. Worf, then why do you need phasers? Haynes says the Alliance just discovered a large cache of weapons. I'm trying to make things even, preserve the peace. Beverly said you keep using the word peace. We've had a different version of life on Tucana 4. Haynes says ancient history. Where did you hear that? Data says a former crewman was born here. Haynes says, where is he now? Data says she was killed in the line of duty. Well, that's a good way to die as any, as I said, ancient history. This is now, and your men are in trouble. Riker said, well, return to the Enterprise and consider your proposal. And Haynes gives him a bottle of liquor. Riker's gift for your captain. And they go back to the Enterprise. And then after they leave, you see Haynes going, I want everything there is to know about the Starship Enterprise. They gave Picard the bottle of booze. So Riker says, according to Haynes, the Coalition and the Alliance raid each other for supplies, much of it non-essential. Picard says, why? Worf says, a battle exercise. Riker says, their defense apparently prevent deep strikes into each other's territory. Minor skirmishers are all that's left. Picard says, the Coalition, Alliance, it all sounds so reasonable, but when you describe the behavior of urban street thugs, we certainly don't trade weapons for crewmen. How do you suggest we deal with them? Riker, we have to tell them something. Worf says, no promises, no denials. Picard, for now, Haynes Coalition is our only safe access to the colony. We'll keep the door open, see where it leads. Worf says, Captain, transmission from Tucana 4 on secure channel. Hello, Enterprise, Commander Riker. Would you introduce me to your captain? Picard says, I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Haynes says, I have someone here you might like to meet. This is Ishara Yar. Ishara Tasha was my sister. There's a little Jane Hamilton going for her, doesn't? Which, you know who I'm talking about, Hamilton. The lady from Terminator. A little bit there. But she's Beth Toussaint, I think. So, Haynes says, there's an old saying, Captain, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I've decided it's in my best interest to help you get your crewmen back. Picard says, with nothing from us in return, Haynes says, you could be forced into paying my adversary a ransom in weapons. I'll do anything I can to avoid that possibility. Picard says, what do you propose? Tasha will be our liaison. I know Alliance territory. I can help with a rescue plan. Picard says, one moment. So Picard asks reactions. I do not trust them, Worf says. Riker says she could be a fake. We told them a member of the crew was from the colony. Beverly says all Hayne has to do is search through whatever their database on Starfleet to find Tasha's name. Picard says, Counselor, Troy says he's deceiving us and he's clearly hoping to manipulate us. As for the identity of the young woman, I cannot tell. Picard says, nevertheless, this is an option we cannot neglect. We'll continue on other fronts as they present themselves. For now, let's see what she has to say. And they tell them they'll agree, and Isha comes aboard. So Data greets Isha. And it's like a one-on-one thing the whole time, and that's why you know they're setting it up because Data had the most intimate relationship with Tasha. So you know that's how they're playing this. I feel bad for Data the whole time. All right, there are certain points in this episode, if you watch, you see Brent Spiner's face gets really, really sad. And you expect to see a tear there, but of course he's supposed to be a robot, so he can't cry. And he's not supposed to have feelings, but we know better. Data has feelings. I mean, they're slight, but they're still feelings, and they're still there. He may have interactions with humans that, give him the time to emulate feelings. He may not really feel, but he, in his mind, thinks he feels, and that's a whole different thing. He may not have feelings, but his mind has feelings. He can think feelings. Does that make sense? So he welcomes Tasha aboard. I'm Commander Data, and Isha says you're not human, and Data says no, I'm an android. Bill for fighting. On what do you base that assumption? Tasha says a cybernetic device serving on a starship. Data says the Enterprise is not a ship of war, it's a ship of exploration. Isha says the first thing to do is help you map the colony. This is the general grid of the tunnel systems. I can fill in specific details from memory. Data says my orders are to escort you to the observation lounge. Please come with me. So they're in the hallway, and Data says, your sister never spoke of you. Isha says, that's not surprising. Data says, it is surprising to me. Tasha and I spent time together. We had a number of conversations. Isha says, did she talk at all about the colony? Data only to say that she was lucky to have escaped. Isha says it wasn't luck, it was cowardice. Data, cowardice is a term that I would never have applied to Tasha. Isha, is something wrong? Data says no, it's just that for a moment the expression on your face reminded me of her. Isha says it's been 15 years, I don't even remember what she looked like. And never once they could show her the holodeck, he could show her his little model. Never once. It never even brings it up. And the whole time I'm waiting for that to happen in the episode, and it never happened. And if I walked into a room and everybody looked at me, I'd feel very self-conscious. I'm the type of person that hides in the back of the room. If I come into the room, I take the last seat in the back corner. It's just... So we got Picard, Riker, Troy, Geordi, and Beverly in the observation lounge. Isha says, you don't believe I'm Tasha's sister. Picard says, we've considered that possibility. I'm not surprised. You can sample my DNA if you like. Beverly says, yes, I will. And Picard says, please sit down. Perhaps it would help if you gave us some idea of what we're dealing with on Tucana 4. Our last information describes a colony in almost complete disarray. Isha says it started falling apart almost 30 years ago. There were dozens of fractions. They fought until the city above ground was in ruins. Riker said the Coalition and the Alliance are all that's left. Isha says we were the two strongest fractions. When the government couldn't stop the violence, they gave us police powers. The proximity detectors were originally designed by the government to keep us under control. Picard says apparently that part of the plan didn't work very well. Isha says no, after a few months we didn't need the government anymore. Geordi says, you left in the middle of all that. Tasha left you in the middle of all that. And Isha goes, no, she didn't. If that's what you mean. Tasha asked me to go with her, but I already joined the coalition. They were my family. Captain, why don't we don't have a lot of time. Maybe we should get started. Worf's voice um, comes over the intercom. So they get the incoming transmission from the planet. Kansu Enterprise, I'm being held by Tucana for Alliance. I've been instructed to say that you have 20 hours to make reparations for Federation intrusion into this colony, or my pilot and I will be killed. Beverly says, ask them if we can send medical, and they get cut off. Ishar says, take that threat seriously, Captain. They'll torture them, and then they'll kill them. My cadre has never recovered a hostage alive from the Alliance. Your crewmen could be held in any number of places, and Alliance has 2 main headquarters and 13 ancillary bases of operation, all underground, all heavily guarded. Geordi, if I could get to my myographic scanner. Ishar says, what's that? Data says a sensing device on the escape pod. It monitors the bioelectrical signatures of the crew in the event they get separated from their pod. Geordi says I could install a booster on the device that would relay a signal to the Enterprise. Then we could track them in from up here. Because says, unfortunately, we don't know where the escape pod is. Isha says, level 3, section 547. We have our sources. Okay, so then we're in engineering. Isha is saying access tunnels are here and here. Riker data Geordi Worf and Isha and here. Riker says we could transport an away team right into this intersection. Isha says don't underestimate them, Commander. They'll be ready for that. I've seen them use this kind of strategy before. I know it looks isolated and easily accessible, but my guess is they have hundreds on the levels above and below waiting for you to make your move. Worf says we'll need a diversion. Geordi says transport a couple of photon grenades into the adjoining chambers. A minimum intensity. It wouldn't kill anybody, but it would shake them up a bit. Riker says that wouldn't give us enough time. We need something that'll occupy them long enough for you to install the relay. Isha says transport me into this corridor. My magnetic implant will set off the defense alarms. They'll think it's a raid by the coalition. Riker says too dangerous. We've seen what those tunnels look like. You could easily be cut off from the rest of us. Worf. Commander Riker, I ordered to assist you in this any way possible. That doesn't mean as long as it's safe or convenient. If you had the time, we could come up with another plan, but you don't. Right now, I'm your best option. Data says she would have to be armed, sir. Riker says, I'd like to discuss this with the captain. Mr. Data, take Ishra to see Dr. Crusher. So then they're in sick bay. Ishra, you have Tasha's DNA on file? Beverly says the ship computer does. There's always some differentiation in the somatic chromosomes, but not enough to affect the results. It should take a few hours to run this isomorph comparison. Ishra says that wasn't too bad. Say all that's left of my sister is a file and a computer. Data says Tasha exists in our memories as well. How did she die? Lieutenant Yar was killed in a Viagra 2 by a malevolent entity. Isha says, in battle, no. She was killed as a demonstration of the creature's power without provocation. Isha says, that's not how I intend to die. Riker says, the captain approves you're with us. This whole time, they keep talking about her and talking about her. Never once do they bring up a hologram. Never once does Data show her his little statue. Never once. And I waited for it. They keep talking about it over and 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 over. And it gets to be a broken record. But they never once show her the hologram or anything. Don't know. So they beam down to the thing, and how many times have they beamed down here into the tunnels, and then later on there's an issue, they have to drill a hole? I don't get it. They've done all these beams in and out, in and out, in and out, and then when they got to get to the guys, it's different. So anyway, they beam down, they check out the situation, then the Isha beams down, the proximity alarms go off, and she goes off in another direction. She has another thing she's gonna, well, not this time, but the next time she's gonna do some stuff. So they find the escape pod. Jordy says there's a lot of damage here. The myographic scanner is operational, but the power source is fluctuating. Riker says, can you fix it? Jordy says, I can probably run a stunt from the converter. How long will it take? Jordy says, 10 minutes. Riker says, do it. Riker says, O'Brien, lock onto Shaw's and get her out of here. O'Brien, there's a transformer substation directly above the signal she just entered. The chamber she just entered. It's masking her signal. Riker says, stand by. Stay here and cover LaForge. Worf says, Commander. Riker says, that's an order. Return to the ship as soon as you're finished here. I'll signal for transport as soon as I can. He finds Ishar injured. Riker says, get us out of here. She has her own little mission. She's doing her own little stuff. Hurry up, Geordi. We need to get going. Hurry up, Geordi. Oh, I'd like to say it's nice to see you. Oops. Sorry. It's nice to see O'Brien, but I skipped it. Sorry. Okay, so Riker saves her. They beam back to the Enterprise, and they get her to sick bay. Riker and Picard have a talk. Picard says, how is she? Riker says, a couple of cracked ribs, she'll be all right. Picard says, Dr. Crusher just called me. The result of her DNA comparison, Ishar is Tasha's sister. After what she did for us down there, it doesn't surprise me one bit. Picard says, you took some unnecessary personal risk, number one. We lost Tasha on an away mission under my command. The thought of the same thing happening to her sister. Picard says, that's an emotional response. Well, we can't afford that. Riker says, understood. Picard says, Commander, well done. So then we're in sick bay. Beverly says, I fused the bone tissue along the fractures. The muscles around the area will be weak for a day or so, but you shouldn't feel any pain. Isha says, thank you, doctor. Then the captain walks in. Picard says, Isha, I wanted to thank you personally for what you did for us down there at the colony. It was more than I expected. Isha says, I don't run away from anything when things get tough, like some people do, like my sister did. Let me tell you about your sister. The first time I saw Tasha Yar, she was making her way through a Carnelian minefield to reach a wounded colonist. Her ship had responded to their distress call, as had mine. When it was all over, I requested that Tasha be assigned to the Enterprise. Her ship's captain owed me a favor. In the months that followed, Tasha never once failed to put the safety of the crew before her own. She died doing the same. I'm sorry you never knew the woman that Tasha became. I think you might have been proud of her and she of you. So they're on the bridge now. Data says, what is this structure? A main fusion source. There's one next to each of the Alliance headquarters. It powers all their defense system. This chamber is accessed from the level below. Entry points are evenly spaced along this wall every 25 meters. Ishar says, where was Tasha's post? Now, see this, there's a lady there, right? They're here. There's a lady there. A few minutes later, and she asks about where Tasha's post was, and conveniently Worf walks in. I just thought that was interesting that I guess it was his cue to walk in. Data says Tasha was close to him and Worf and Riker, and they over and over and over and over and over and over They never once show her the picture of her sister. Never once. It irks me the whole thing. Um, Todd. She asks him if he's able to have friends. Data says yes, but you don't have feelings, do you? Data says not as much, however, perhaps even among humans, friendship is sometimes less an emotional response and more a sense of familiarity. Ishra says you can become used to someone. Data says exactly. As I experience certain sensory input patterns, my mental pathways become accustomed to them. The input is eventually are anticipated and even missed when absent. Ishra says, like my sister. And Data says, yes, like my sister. Feelings. It's feelings. Sensory input. Feelings. Then we're back in engineering. Worf, Geordi, Data, Riker, and Isha. Geordi says they've been moved so far underground that it's been difficult to pinpoint their signatures. The men are here next to one of the Alliance headquarters, and that's about 2 kilometers of solid granite above them. So much for the transporter. Geordi says not necessarily. We could use the ship's phasers to cut a shaft through the bedrock to this storage tunnel here. With a clear path through the rock, we'd be able to transport down to the tunnel. That would put us close enough to get to the crewmen. But I will need 2 hours to refit the ship's phasers for drilling. Riker says it's a real maze down there. Isha says I spent a lot of time in the sack section before they took it over. There are blind tunnels and dead ends that won't even show up on this map. Worf says we don't have a choice. Now, I want to know, and it's never once brought up, they're drilling in your planet. They're drilling in your home. You don't contact them and say, what the F are you doing? Never once. Because they've been hanging out with guy A, and they're drilling into guy B's territory, and they never once. They know they're there. They never once try and contact them. They never go, why are you drilling a hole in our ceiling? Never once. There's never any communication. No one in official capacity ever contacts them. So what the F? Just saying. Isha says, if it wasn't for my implant setting off all the alarms, I could guide you to your men. Data says we could remove the implant. Isha says no, it was a micro explosive inside that detonates on contact with air. When you join a cadre, you join for life. Data says a small force field containing Exxon on another inert gas could be placed over the incision site. The explosive could possibly be disarmed at the same time it is removed. Riker says this is something you have to decide for yourself, Isha. Think about it while we're waiting for Geordi. Forward. Isha says our parents were killed in some crossfire just after I was born. Some people took care of us for a few months. Then one day we came home and they were gone. So Tasha took care of me. When I got old enough, I joined the coalition. And Data says, and Tasha did not. My sister hated the cadres, blamed them for our parents' death for everything. She refused to join, and she left as soon as she had the chance. I always thought she was weak for doing that, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe she made the right choice to work together for something besides killing, to be close to someone without having to protect your back. You're a perfect example. I hardly even know you, Data, but I already completely trust you. I consider you a friend. Data says, thank you. I would like to consider you my friend as well. Isha says, if I had known about this place 15 years ago, things might have been different. Maybe it's not too late. You know, she's playing him. She's playing him 6 ways to Sunday, and I don't like it. So then Data meets with Troy and Picard. She says Isha is willing to have the implant removed. Good, you may inform Dr. Crusher. Data says she also expressed a desire to leave the colony. She hopes to apply to the academy and eventually join Starfleet. Picard says, does she understand the magnitude of these decisions? Data says she claims to, Captain. Troy says, I get a sense of ambiguity from her. Her loyalties are clearly divided, Captain. Picard says, "Are you suggesting we should deny her an escape from this environment?" Troy says, "No, I'm just not sure she wants to escape. It's the only way of life she's ever known." Picard says, "Ultimately, it is her decision to make, not ours. Mr. Data, proceed with the mission as planned." And then uh, Troy and Data have a convo. You seem so strong in your support. I'm curious, Data. Data, we must free the crewman. She appears to be our best hope of doing so. In addition, I have become used to her. Aw, poor Data. He's gonna get his heart broken. Right? She's playing him. She's playing him the whole time. She's playing him the whole episode. And he's an android and he gets played. So they are giving Data feelings. Lots of feelings. And he's not supposed to have feelings, but they are giving him feelings. They are making Data more human as the series goes on. Seriously. They are making him feelings. Because I know he gets hurt. He really does get hurt. And it's not fair. Have a conversation on the bridge. Data says, "You are welcome. Dr. Crusher is expecting you in sickbay." Ishra says, "It's all so different." "To what are you referring?" Ishra says, "On the colony, nobody does anything for anyone unless they have something to gain from it." Data says, "But I do have something to gain, your continued presence on the ship. Is that wrong?" Ishra says, "I have to tell Hayne and the others. I owe it to them. I guess I ought to get it over with." Data, "If you desire privacy, you may use the observation lounge." She goes in the observation lounge. She talks to Aang and she says it's working. See? She's conning them. She's conning the whole crew. She's pulling on the old heartstrings. Evil. Two-timer. She even kisses Data on the cheek before she goes tell the guy that it's working. So then we get a voiceover view from Captain. Dr. Crusher has removed Ishra's magnetic implant, enabling the young woman to guide our rescue attempt. Without my intending it, she has virtually become an active member of my crew. See? She's tugging at all their feelings. She's taking advantage. But they are getting their crew peoples back. So I guess it's a twofer, I guess. I don't know. Beverly says cardiac value functions, normal metabolism, immunity, all of the vital organs. Excellent. How do you feel? Isha says, "Better than I've ever felt. Thanks for staying with me." Beverly says, "You might want to keep this. It's a little part of your life." And she gives it to Data to remember her by. Good grief. I skipped over it, but I'll just say that she has a conversation with Worf. "I understand you wish to join Starfleet." Ishar says, "Someday if I'm lucky." Ishar says, "On that day, it is we who will be lucky." Then they go to the transporter. They beam down. So they drill the hole. They go down. We never hear from the other side. I was saying that before. They're drilling a hole in their side of the earth, the tunnel or whatever, and we never hear from them ever. They never say, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You know, could you say your prayer?" Nothing. They never even meet the other side. So they beam down. Ishar says, "This way." Worf says, "Caution." She says, "We're near the heart of the Alliance. Security is minimal here. They aren't expecting anybody this far in." Um, then they follow her. And she goes, Worf says, "Are you certain?" She goes, "No." She goes, "Try to remember, I was here, but it was a long time ago. There have been changes. It was through here. Your men are behind this door." They go through and find the men. Riker, hold out your hands, and he takes off the handcuffs. So they rescue the guys. They get the guys out, and they take their handcuffs off, and they take them back to the Enterprise. And then they can't find Ishar. Apparently, she has her own motive. So this is the big old generator that's powering the other side's thing. And this was her whole reason for doing all of this so she could destroy the generator. It would take down their power, and her side could come in and take over. This was her whole mission. Traitor. Traitor. She played on everybody's feelings. She went undercover for the other side to do this mission, to destroy this machine. Traitor. So then Data comes in and finds her. What are you doing? The fusion generator is overloading. You are attempting to disable the defense system. For what reason? We have rescued the crewman. Ishra says, I don't care about your crewmen. We have 3,000 troops waiting in the perimeter. When the defenses go down, they'll come in and the alliance will fall. Data says the Federation will not be responsible for the resulting death. I cannot allow that. Ishra says you don't have a choice. Data says that's not true. Ishra says I don't want to kill you, but I will. Data says we will both be destroyed in the explosion. Ishra says the coalition's been all I've had for 15 years. They've given me life. I don't mind dying for them, but you won't have to if you get out of here right now. Data says this was your intention from the beginning. Ishra says we never could have gotten this deep into the Alliance territory without your help. Data says our help was not deliberate. You deceived us. Ishra says, what's the difference? You got what you came for. Why should you care about what we do? Data says your friendship with me was part of the description, was it not? You misled me at each step, yet I was completely unaware. See? We feel bad for Data. He hurts. He may say he has no feeling, but he hurts. He's definitely hurt in this moment. Massive hurt. His feelings are hurt. He was used. And he will think about that forever. That he was easily misled. He trusted somebody because of her heritage, her legacy, her DNA, and he was betrayed. That doesn't matter now. None of it does. Get out of here, Data, please. Now, Data, my duty requires me to intercede. Ishara says stop. Riker, and he stops her. Ishara said, Riker comes in and says, what was she doing? She was disabling the detection system so that her forces could attack. Riker picks up the phaser and says it was set to kill. So then we're back on the Enterprise. Haynes said, it was a calculated risk. You gave us an opportunity we couldn't ignore. Are you hurt, Ishara? She says no. Haynes, I want her returned immediately. Riker said, you're not in a position to dictate anybody. She attacked 2 Federation officers. Haynes said, you have no jurisdiction here. Riker says, don't talk about legal rights. Your jurisdiction is basically entirely on threat of violence. Haynes says, you have your crewman back. Isn't that enough? Picard says, Commander Data, escort Ishara to the transporter room. Thank you. Haynes says, thank you, Captain. Picard says, close channel. Riker says, you're far more charitable than I would have been. Picard says, I understand your feelings, number one. I share them, but perhaps the fault lies in ourselves. We were so eager to accept her. Each of us, myself included, wanted to see something of Tasha in this woman. We saw more than we was there. They're walking in the corridor. Isha says, you haven't said one word to me. Data says, what do you wish to talk about? Isha, I did what I had to do. I'm sorry if I hurt you in the process. Data says, I'm an android. It's impossible for me to be injured in that fashion. And then they go to the transporter room and she beams down. And she goes, you know, Data, I wasn't always lying to you. That time we spent talking was the closest thing to friendship I've ever had. It means everything. And she gives him that little doohickey, her tracker thingy. Data goes to see Riker. What's on your mind? Data says, recent events have left me puzzled, sir. It's been a few days since Ishar left, and yet my thoughts seem to dwell on her, almost as if I were experiencing a feedback loop in my mnemonic network. Riker says, I know what you mean. Data says, it's curious that I was so easily misled. Riker says, make that we. Data says, yes, sir. He sits down. Riker says, in all trust, there is the possibility of betrayal. I'm not sure you were prepared for that. Data says, were you prepared? Riker says, I don't think anybody ever is. Data says, then is it better not to trust? Riker says, without trust, there is no friendship, no closeness, none of the emotional bonds that make us what we are. Data says, and you put yourself at risk. Riker says, every single time, love itself is a leap of faith. Data says, yes, perhaps I am fortunate to be spared that emotional consequence. And Riker says, perhaps, as Data leaves. I don't think Data is spared that emotional consequence. I think because I was expecting, I know he's a robot now, but when he walks out of the room and he holds the chip in his hand, you expect to see a little tear. Oh right, he's a computer. I know, but this whole episode played on our heartstrings for Data, not for her, but for him. They really tugged our heartstrings with this one. So that was Legacy, Disc 4, Episode 2, Disc 2, Season 4, Episode 180. So we did Remember Me last week. We just finished Legacy. Next week we'll do Reunion. Is that the Laura one? I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. And Future Imperfect. Oh, Worf's Kid. So be sure to tune in for those. Don't forget Flashback Mondays and Star Trek Next Generation Fridays, and watch for the book reviews every day. I try to do variety. Right now I'm binge reading Alyssa Maxwell before I get back to JD Robb and Sands and Laura K. Hamilton. We will eventually move on to Ivanovich up there and Coulter back there and Patterson over there. We will get to those too. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. It's just me reading books, talking books, me watching Star Trek, talking Star Trek. I like series. I'm a series person. I like to watch the character progression from book to book or episode to episode. So please stay tuned and please hit the like and subscribe. Thank you.